Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining Tuskegee University SMART to celebrate Canna-Kwanzaa-Con. If you're not familiar, Kwanzaa is a 7-day holiday beginning the day after Christmas and acknowledged through the first of the new year. Kwanzaa was founded by Maulana Karinga as a way of uniting and empowering the so-called Black community. Cannabis is an extremely versatile agriculture commodity with over 50,000 implications for everyday use, where smoking is only one. Canna-Kwanzaa-Con is where we explore the diversity of cannabis and what it means for the future of our community, especially in the face of climate change. Today, we are celebrating the principle of UMOJA, which represents unity.
Yes, it definitely does.
Yeah.
Thank you all for creating this space. I want to give a huge congratulations to the Tuskegee SMART family, for the continued excellence over the years. Y'all been really, taking this on your backs, and shoulders, and really created a community that, now as we have other programs and now there's a long living legacy. It's great to see folks like Candace and Lakaya, who've been here since the start, continue to see it through. So really, again, thank you so much.
Thank you. We're happy to put it on our back and travel this journey with you.
Yeah, we're we can definitely talk. The good thing is people see our work, and more resources are being dedicated to what we do. And we have the Free the Plan .FYI campaign that we've been doing with SSDP. So to really focus on us and the industry as a whole wanting to give back to HBCUs, get involved, and start to build that bridge. So I think a lot of more is to come, and I'm excited for this conversation.
Absolutely. So traditionally, and we are traditional, we celebrate Kwanzaa. I was going to say we celebrate cannabis. We celebrate Kwanzaa with the traditional greeting.
We do celebrate cannabis, though.
Yeah, that's what this meeting is all about.
Right, exactly.
Bringing the two together, yeah.
Yeah, so we open up with Habaragani.
Habaragani.
Yes, UMOJA. Thank you, Muhjah. So today's principle is this first day of Kwanzaa is UMOJA. And UMOJA stands for, Muhjah, what UMOJA stand for?
Unity.
Ooh,
unity in the family and within yourself first, unity of self. And then it moves out from there.
Well, that is actually our first question that we'd like to expound on with the both of you. So thank you, Muhjah, for the direct translation that UMOJA means unity. And then we want to ask you, what does UMOJA mean to you, especially as it relates to your work in the cannabis industry? And Nadir,
that's for me?
It's for both of you.
Okay. Well, that's a good question, and it's certainly a question I hadn't thought about, what it means to me in terms of, the principle of unity. But perhaps it's an effort to have a greater understanding, because we know that there's a lot of misunderstanding and a lot of myths as well as negative stereotypes about it. So maybe having some unity of thought around the actual facts, the history of it, and all of its capabilities. That if people had that knowledge or that information, that could produce a type of a unified effort moving forward. Yeah.
No, that's really great insight. I think one thing that we'll hear very common, or one thing that'll be very prominent throughout Kwanzaa will be teamwork. And that shows up in different areas and different aspects. Muhjah, you expound, making that connection with unity and how we work together as a team so we can move together with a similar force in particular areas.
Yeah, and to add on to that, one thing I saw really, I'm not gonna lie, I looked it up real quick. Just this, and one thing I saw was, who am I? Was a question that was asked in regards to this, UMOJA and unity. And so for me, that is something that as Black folks, we have to have that root and understanding of who we are. And that's probably some of the most important things for anybody as a person, right? Figuring out who your identity is, where those roots tie back to, understanding your history and that purpose in the world sometimes can give you that guidance. And for a lot of us who've been in the diaspora, who don't necessarily have strict ties, my last name is Pearson, my family's from Puerto Rico, right? But after that, I go like 1 or 2 generations and I haven't really have an understanding what goes there, but I have a general understanding, right, of where I am in the world and how do I fit in and still the pride that I can have as a Black man. So I think, and as an Afro-Latino who's more, adds another layer of intersectionality to the whole, factor. So for me, it's, Puerto Rico is different because we have a little bit more pride around different colors and races, ethnicity, versus when you think about the Dominican Republic and Haiti, where it's like that one border separates a line that creates such, a way bigger political sphere, and obviously more tension. So I've definitely been blessed and privileged in that way to, be Boricua and like have that be something that's proud of, like people understand that we have different colors and it's a melting pot. But again, that who am I was able, allowed me to translate into my professional career as a person in the world, because I'm confident in who I am, where my history is, and how I can, move throughout the world. And if you don't have that, that's one of the first things that you have to find as a person. And then that can translate to maybe a skill set, right, of who you are in the workplace, right? And then, that, because, you mentioned unity of yourself. So to me, that is probably like, first and foremost, if you don't know who you are, it's really difficult to be on a team with a person in love, right? Like if you don't know who you are, it's difficult to be with others. And then, you really want to understand your place in the world. So definitely important for cannabis to life.
Ashe, Nadir, that was actually so beautiful. I know one of the reasons I was super thirsty to get SMART down here was because of the person who founded it, right? Like when I think of SMART, I definitely think of you, and I think of, as people, I'm sure, Google you and figure out more about you. One thing they'll come across is your TED Talk and how you talk about your grandfather, right? And the impact that he played on in your life, and watching his struggles with cancer, right? With that battle and understanding the role that cannabis could play. I think when we talk about Kwanzaa, and just Black culture in general, it's really big about, your ancestors and standing on their shoulders, right? And being able to acknowledge that and be forward and open with that. So we wanted to ask you, what does your existence in the cannabis space mean for you, your culture, and the community, and all of the communities in which you may identify, which you just kind of touched on a little bit, but just to kind of unpack that a bit more.
Yeah, I would say it's probably a little bit more because of, going to an Ivy League. That's probably the other aspect of this conversation for me that, allowed me to embark upon this cannabis journey in a way that was different than others, but generally not, right? So that was the thing that I've always been very keen on, is, having some of that survivor's remorse that keeps you humble, and understanding that, I am no different than any other Black man in this country, right? I'm not better than anybody, right? I just so happen to be in a very privileged situation, to be in spaces that have been comfortable about cannabis, allow me to talk about it, bring others, educate people, consume it myself, right? And like really gain this full experience that, I almost got kicked out of high school, right? That's something that people may not know about me, right? For weed, right? Because that's something that happens to a lot of people. My trajectory to Brown could immediately got cut, right? And we wouldn't be having this conversation, or I just might not be where I am today, right? So I see that as, again, like that aspect of this conversation for me has always been important, in terms of, again, realizing that we have this immense privilege to talk about cannabis, and it's something that we got to continue to reach back. And as more people make money and as new states come on, like it's still so many people that are not accessible to this. We've been having this conversation for 5, almost going on 10 years now, around colleges and how we can get folks involved in the youth. And now even, the next Gen Z, they don't, their conversation around cannabis is something that we have to be way more involved in. as it becomes legal. So this is something that, you know, I think our job is more important than ever.
Shay.
Absolutely. And Muhjah, so as Nadir's expounded upon, you know, the time and consistency that it's taken to successfully navigate the cannabis industry. We understand that it's not a one and done. It's nothing that you can enter in today and see absolutely flourished by tomorrow. It's definitely something where we have to stick to the script that we are creating with our narrative, and just be consistent and persistent in the work that we do in this industry. And with you being an elder, but a newbie to this cannabis space, where does that value lie? Where does it lie for you?
Well, you know, it's similar to so many things that we face on a daily basis in terms of going to the root, going to, you know, and actually going to the root, the meaning of radical is going to the root, really. And we find ourselves, I think, as Black people having to do that with almost everything that's of any significance in our lives. And so now here we come to cannabis that has been misunderstood and maligned in a lot of ways. And we're having to go to the root of it to try to understand, and then to share that knowledge and wisdom, you know, with the communities, you know, with the world, actually. But like everything, you know, things have to be done in degrees or in proportions, you know what I'm saying? So anything that you do too much of, I mean, maybe we could make a short list of things that you can't do too much of. But in most cases, even things that are good for you have to be done in a prescription. I don't mean like go to the doctor and get a prescription, but and so that would be a concern that I would have for the community of people, that this thing doesn't become something that can become not a healing element, but something that could actually have the opposite effect by it not being utilized properly. And I'm not sure what the utilization properly is, but I just know that as a principle in life, that too much of anything isn't good. Even, you know, you know, even if you think about love, you know, well, then where does discipline and justice come in? You know, there's love in justice, there's love and righteous fighting back. You know, all of these kinds of things come into play when we think about, you know, the reemergence and the advertising and the propagation of this very sacred plant. You know, that it has to be understood. Like you don't get up every day. You know, you can OD on vitamin C. You can OD on anything. You know, so those are, I think, those are important conversations too. That as an elder, you know, we don't, you know, having a recreation, you know, using it as recreation in proportion is good, you know. Now, if folks get to the point where they can't get up out of the bed without it, or these kinds of things, those are open questions, I think, for exploration.
Definitely. And I think that something that both of you all have touched on, and the whole point of this opening conversation, I think is obviously very thoughtful about Kwanzaa. It's like unity exists on so many different scales, especially when we talk about within the diaspora moving forward to a real community where we see ourselves equitably involved, right? And where justice and freedom are reigning for all. So my question for you two is like, what would you like to see from your generation and then from the generation before or after yours, right? So like, Nadir, what would you like to see from millennials and Generation Z? Or what would you like to see from, millennials and Generation Z? And what would you like to receive from elders to kind of make our journey more difficult. I mean, more simple moving forward, I guess. And then Mama Muhjah, what would you like to see from elders, right? Or what do you think elders can contribute to this movement? Because really cannabis is a movement, and you're an elder in the movement, right? For Black liberation in general, right? So what would you like to see for this little piece of that bigger conversation from, you know, your generation, from elders, and then from younger people?
Mm-hmm. You want me to go first? When you ready?
Yeah, if you want to go
Okay.
first, Mama, yeah, you can go first.
Well, I would say first and foremost, an open mind or a willingness to learn, you know, because we have to unpack, you know, all of the negative stereotypes. There's a lot to be unpacked. And so, again, I think it's not that different from learning about the knowledge of oneself, you know? I mean, we've been taught certain things, and what we've been taught is not accurate, just straight up, you know? So I would love to see older people, even though there are quite a few older people that do partake, you know, so that might even be a stereotype too, you know, that the older generation doesn't. I mean, you may have just as many church-going young people that have a sort of a misunderstanding or negative understanding of cannabis as well. So that might be interesting to think about it in those ways too. It's probably on both sides of the fence. So, you know, what I'd like to see really is for people to become more open-minded, to at least be a part of the conversation, at least open-minded enough to consider the other side, the other points of view that people have not previously been privy to. And then to figure out ways that we can be a part of this economic reset, you know, because it is a commodity that we at one time, I guess historically, when I listened to the doctor, sister, friend, I don't remember her name, her presentations on the history of cannabis, you know, that we were a part of that from the beginning, and we should be a part of it now. And, you know, as it moves forward in this new industry, you know, that we should be able to capitalize on it. Not capitalistic, but we should be able to benefit from it in ways that can help to improve our communities, whether it's, you know, just, you know, it's deeper than just, you know, smoking it or digesting it. You know, it can be utilized in a whole myriad of ways. And that's what I would hope that communities, both elders and youth, could understand, and the proper way to work with it, and the proper ways to utilize it if we're going to ingest it. Because you've heard me say before, like, you know, your lungs are not made for smoke. It just isn't. You know what I mean? And so, you know, if you're gonna smoke it, you shouldn't overdo it. You know what I mean? You should just do it, you know, once in a while, you know? So too much of anything isn't good.
Absolutely. If that was not motherly of you. And the video you're referencing is Dr. Knox, Dr. Rachel Knox.
That's right.
Nadir.
Yeah, I would say, you know, I don't think, you know, millennials are probably not as much like this, but definitely Gen Z. But anybody, you know, really in these younger generations, I just want folks to continue to see the merit in tradition, you know, see the merit in things of, you know, of considered quote unquote old, right? Things that have been previously done. Just because it's previously done doesn't mean that it's old, doesn't mean that it's outdated. Sometimes things are just worked and tried and true. And if, you know, if it's not broke, don't fix it. And I think a lot of, you know, currently, you know, Western society is just so much of new futuristic, right? Like Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and everything to make life easier. And sometimes, you know, life literally is not about being made easy, right? It's like literally about the process of life, you know, of growth, of ups, downs, right? You know, injuries, trials, tribulations. And so I hope that people, you know, continue to try to draw closer to that. I think there is this push for nature, but a push for nature and then running back you know, home to the city is not the same thing as actually, you know, living off the land or having, you know, something to be grown. And you know, again, there can be an arrogance that comes with young folks and us thinking that we know everything about this new age of cannabis, right? And so I don't want us to get caught up too much in the hype of all these new things and sciences that are coming out, because we're still very much learning about it. But there is, you know, again, the lineage and traditions that we've had have so much merit that I want folks to continue to be, to your point, open-minded to those things. And respectful of your elders, you know, first and foremost. I think that's lost upon people right now.
No, absolutely. I think the beautiful thing about what you two are saying is that it's also reflected in how you move about the industry currently. So Muhjah, just by you being an elder and showing up to this space and engaging in these conversations, you're a leader, right? You create opportunity for other elders to come in. You can connect with them more differently than we can. So by you showing up and being an example, you create the space for people to have an open mind by being that example. And the same with you, Nadir, as you move about this space and you pay homage to your culture, to your ancestors, and as you pay homage, that's recognized, that's seen. And again, it serves as the greatest example, right? So in leadership, the greatest way to be a leader is to be an example of how you want people to move through this space. So I thank you both just for engaging, especially you, Muhjah, as we're here locally, for showing up and creating, again, for being that example, for lending us your space, for allowing us to operate, for allowing us to host these events in conjunction with you, in partnership with you. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm honored
Yes,
to be a part of you all's crew, you know. Yeah. and it, you know, and it has evolved over time. It didn't just happen, you know. We've been doing this for a minute. You know, and so that intergenerational piece is huge, you know, and at some point, you know, I'd love to have a conversation just about that, you know, in terms of creating principles around what that looks like, you know.
I think it's hard because
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was just gonna add that you mentioned earlier there's a stereotype around, you know, older generations not, you know, or elder generations not consuming. And I think it actually comes from a standpoint of them shielding that from their, you know, nieces, nephews, grandsons, daughters, because they don't want to set a bad example. And it ends up, you know, not providing a conversation or a dialogue in general, you know? And I think that's sometimes something that we do out of fear, protection, right? But it ends up kind of, you know, leaving, again, no dialogue is, you know, some dialogue is better than no dialogue, you'd hope.
That's a really interesting point because when I was you all's age, well, I had my first child when I was 23. I had already gone through a lot of different, you know, I had become a member of the Nation of Islam back in those days. That's like almost 45 years ago. But I never did things in front of my children until I always thought about them developmentally, you know, like it's certain things that, you know, a young mind just doesn't comprehend until they reach a certain development. So you expose them at different points in time, you know. So I would never do things that I didn't want them to do, because whatever you're doing is basically you're giving them permission to do it too. So
yes.
Well, you guys you guys bring up two very interesting points that we will love to nurture. So Muhjah, you brought up having a conversation about the intersectionality of generations. And Nadir, you mentioned just having dialogue about these things. So on this first day of Kwanzaa, I'm really excited just to share with you and remind you that on our last day of Kwanzaa, we will be having a live roundtable discussion where the community will be invited to select topics that they believe should be expounded upon. After being given the foundation of information that will roll out through Canna-Kwanzaa-Con. And from those topics, we will move into small group discussions to see how we can navigate these particular spaces that we've selected ourselves as those areas that need importance. So that's going to be on January the 1st, 2023 at 3:00 p.m. Central. So our community will be invited to join us virtually to participate in that conversation. But before we get super excited and close out, we do want to offer to you guys our closing question for all panelists of Canna-Kwanzaa-Con, which acknowledges that this budding industry, it attracts anyone and everyone who sees the opportunity within the industry. So what advice would you give to individuals who are looking to successfully navigate cannabis spaces? And that's for both.
I'll let you go first, Nadir, on that one, because I think you thought about that a lot.
Yeah, that's easy. I always just tell people to show up as a student, you know, and just continue to be learning and a sponge in all your conversations and continue to ask questions, because for me, it's always the easiest way to learn about the industry and successes and failures and what not to do is just by asking people who've done it already good questions and having an engaging conversation. So again, just like be open in that regard is definitely my advice to everybody.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's pretty much, I don't know if I could add very much more to that. You know, that throughout life, we're always students, you know, at different points in time. And so with this ancient old commodity coming back to us, we do need to educate ourselves, you know, around it, its uses, its purpose, you know, and how to work with it, how to manage it. And how we can work cooperatively together to benefit collectively. I think that's one of the principles, you know, cooperative economics and collective work and responsibility, you know. So yeah, with that question, it really does bring everything together, you know. That's what, I forget exactly what your question was, but
Advice for someone else to navigate.
Yeah. That we remember the principles as we engage with cannabis. Let's remember and apply the 7 principles, you know. Yeah, the 7 is actually the Nguzo Saba, which means a Black value system. So that we surround this this new economic opportunity as well as health opportunity, you know, textiles opportunities, that we surround it all with the 7 principles or the 7 values of Kwanzaa. We can't go wrong if we do that. We keep that in mind.
And that's Canna-Kwanzaa-Con. Here's to
well,
thanks
for this rehearsal, you know. It's a very wise thing to do, you know.
Yo, I am not gonna lie.
That was the real thing. That was not a rehearsal.
Yeah, that was it.
What do you mean a rehearsal? That was not a rehearsal. That was it.
It's done. And might I add, it was a beautiful, I was over here geeking because I'm like, yo, like, this is you two, and this conversation is the epitome of what we want, you know what I'm saying, people to get away or to take away from this week-long celebration. It's like, yes, we're moving into a whole new space where we got to do things totally differently. And like, you all are both experts in your respective fields and also newbies at life and newbies in cannabis at the same time. So,
you know, it just hit me. I mean, it just hit me that, okay, you know, this is Canna-Kwanzaa, but it just hit me that the principle, that the reason why you're doing it is because you want people to apply the principles to. It's like, duh.
It's a brain blast. It's a brain blast. You got it.
No, very
That's
exciting.
dope.
And you guys have affirmed and verified this event, this annual event, just by the natural uncovering of its purpose within your conversation, right? That means we totally know we're going somewhere, and the prominent reoccurrence of particular themes show to us truly, as you said, Muhjah, the importance of applying the principles to how we operate in the cannabis space. We will only go far if we go together.
That's right. That's
Somebody
right.
break out the bongos.
It's still recording, so you could clip that up. You could clip that up. They got that on the record. That's all clipped up right there.
Close every video.
And it's sort of nice for that, it's like a conclusion, that's what we should talk about at the end. I mean, toward the ending of the thing, I mean, we'll be natural. We'll just let it flow.
She said, nice rehearsal.
Well, yeah.
She think about
because,
dialogue.
Rehearsal for the first.
Yeah, I mean, it's like bringing us together, bringing me and Nadir together, and me getting a sense of the kinds of questions that you might be asking, and I think it was important to do it. Even we could have pulled it off without doing it, but I think that it's you feel a lot more comfortable, kind of knowing a little bit about what to expect.
Absolutely.
Indeed.
Well, I don't want to force you guys to stay on here. I would love to do this ongoingly. I want to thank you very much for your time. Thank you for your candid responses and engaging, entertaining our questions and speaking to the SMART community at large. Again, just some things that you should be mindful of. We'll be streaming Canna-Kwanzaa-Con via YouTube under the CISC YouTube page. It'll stream every day during Kwanzaa at 3:00 p.m. Central Standard Time. We'll send you a link to the YouTube page, and we'll also send you promotional materials, which will include an invite and hopefully a personal Instagram image that you can share out with your community as you see fit. And then we'll be sending Muhjah, so we've decided that we're sending personal invitations to people who will be invited to the house on the 1st. So Nadir, the event we have on the 1st, it will be absolutely live, and it'll be a hybrid event. So we'll have a virtual space available for our community that extends beyond the state of Alabama. But we also want to be intentional about bringing the community within the state an opportunity to come together. So we're actually going to be doing that at Nature's Garden for Victory and Peace, which Muhjah is what's your appropriate title?
Founder.
Founding president and CEO.
She's the founder and she's the president of that space. And so we're going to be having that hybrid discussion there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
the
like
thing
awesome.
today is Imani.
Wish you could
so,
be here, Nadir.
Yeah, Imani is.
I know. How far is
Well,
Alabama from Georgia?
Are you going to be in Georgia? It's 2 hours.
No, I'm just trying to understand the geographics. So when I go to Georgia,
We'll pick
maybe
you
I'll
up.
come.
Yeah, it's not
Well,
far.
yeah.
From the airport, it's about an hour and 45 minutes.
But from Georgia airport?
From Atlanta airport.
From Atlanta?
Yeah.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
We
Yeah,
do
so it's
that
not
way
far.
too often.
My
It's
grandma
like
lives in
twice a
like
week.
25 minutes out of Atlanta, so
Okay.
Yeah. Come in.
So,
Whenever you get out here, let us know. We'll slide.
I think it would be good, Lakaya and Candace, if you all came over and we figured out, how we want to shoot it, the setup. We won't wait till the day of to do that, to figure out like where the camera is going to be placed and where the table is going to be placed and where we want people to be placed, I've been kind of looking at it. I have a few ideas, but yeah. So whenever you have time, you guys can stop by.
You make a great mention. Candace, we're going to need a camera. I have a camera that can go on top of the laptop, but we need a camera like the one that we had when we were at the municipal complex.
So to be mindful of time, I'm going to say thank you to that.
Harambe, thank you so much for tuning into today's Canna-Kwanzaa-Con discussion. But the journey doesn't end here, bud. Join us and our guest of the week on January 1st, 2023 at 3 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time for a live roundtable discussion around the principle of Imani, which means faith. You can register to attend the roundtable at lu.ma/CKC23. That's lu.ma/CKC23. Be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more updates from our team and to connect with our cannabis community. See you on the other side.